Good evening and welcome to our middle school parent night, our middle school preview. This is a first of its kind. We have a mix between a presentation and a panel discussion. I'm excited to have our middle school team with us here, along with a couple of special guests. But with everything here at Christ the Redeemer, we like to start with prayer. So please join me in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Dear loving and gracious God, we give you thanks for today. We give you thanks for Christ the Redeemer Catholic School and the inspired learning that goes on each and every day within our walls. We ask that you grant us understanding, our families who are with us tonight, that their questions may be answered as they discern the next steps for their children. We ask that you help them to see what a beautiful, inspirational, and faith-filled place Christ the Redeemer is. And during this time, Lord, we ask that you watch over the many who are sick and suffering, not only within our community, but throughout the world due to the current pandemic. We ask that you watch over the first responders, the medical and health professionals throughout the world. And we ask a special blessing over our teachers who each and every day put everything they have toward making sure our children receive everything they possibly can. And in your name we will pray together. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. So that's the first thing I like to brag on, is in our name, Christ the Redeemer Catholic School, the most important piece of that word is Christ, and a close second is Catholic. And you heard me speak to the inspired learning that students here at Christ the Redeemer experience each and every day. And what inspired learning means is that we don't just have theology class for 40 minutes a day or religion class for 45 minutes a day, but our faith and everything our faith represents runs through the fabric of everything that we do. And that is seen in many places, but no better seen in the students here on campus. And Tony, if you were to go to the next slide, I also like to brag on the fact that we have seen, I believe, 3, and this will be our 4th graduating class this year. Of all of our graduates who've applied to the area Catholic and private schools, 96% of those graduates have gotten into those schools. Not only have they gotten into the private Catholic schools, but they've gotten into their first choice private and Catholic schools. And I think that speaks volumes to the work that we're doing, not just in the middle school, but throughout our school in general. I could go on and talk about our graduates and what they're doing out there in high school, but I think it would be better to hear from the source. So without any further ado, I would like to invite Taylor and Tony up to the podium, who are 2 of our recent graduates, to speak a little bit about what Christ the Redeemer means to them. Come on up.
Thank you very much, Mr. Courtney. It really is an honor to be back here. Just if I can start off before we do any questions, just saying how much Christ the Redeemer really has meant to me and how much it has impacted my life into high school and going in. It really helped prepare me, not only academically, but also socially and religion-wise. It really has helped. You want to say?
Kind of going off what Tony said, Christ Redeemer has really been a fundamental part of kind of into adulthood from high school, but just that transition from middle school into high school, it was really important to me to carry those values that this school has taught me into my high school career. And I think the way that I've implemented that is just so flawlessly, and I think they've done such a great job. So
Thank you. Well, we're going to have Taylor and Tony stay up here for a minute and see if anybody has any questions. And I'm getting from our producer a shaking of the head no. But they will stick around, and if there are some questions later, they will be here to answer them. Thank you both so much. So moving on, just to kind of give you an idea of how the night will proceed, is I'm going to give you a general overview of our middle school, and then our teachers up here are going to talk a little bit more specifically about the transition from elementary school into the 6th grade and speak a little bit more specifically to the different kinds of things that we do to transition these kids from what we call the little kids at our school to the big kids, the leaders of our school, and that is our middle school. So a few highlights, as you can see, is a lot of people wonder, especially those who aren't part of a private or Catholic school yet, wonder about the curriculum. And our curriculum is very closely tied to the TEKS. So essentially they're getting the same curriculum that they would get if they were to go to a public school in the area. Obviously, we have the additional piece of our faith and our theology classes. In our middle school, we will be running 8 periods of day. Those are 45-minute class sessions each. And our 6th through 8th grade currently follow a schedule where they're in math, social studies, English, language arts, science, theology. Those are their core classes. And then they do also attend Spanish, art, PE, and fine arts as well. So they have wonderful opportunities throughout the core curriculum to not only meet the demands of our curriculum, but also to have enrichment classes that I mentioned to help further their education even more. We also attend library once a week where the students work a lot on our modern day skills, research skills. And so they are also very avid readers up in our middle school, and we promote, and you'll hear a lot more about that. We want our kids to leave our school not just being proficient readers, but have a deep love for reading, and that's central to our curriculum. Students, like I said, see all 6 core classes every day. In our math program, we have recently changed the math program to allow for both on-level coursework and then advanced level coursework. And you'll hear a little bit more about that as I talk throughout these slides. We're obviously here to try and meet the needs of all of our learners. We've heard this word differentiation of instruction before, and we truly believe that it is our responsibility to make sure the needs of students who may be remedial or students who may be advanced, to get their needs met, while also understanding that we can't forget the middle. And so we'll be able to outline some of the ways we're doing differentiation in some of our core classes in just a moment. We do standardized testing. We don't do the STAR test in terms of what they're doing in the public schools. One of the things that I like about the standardized testing that we do at Christ the Redeemer is it is in place for the reason that standardized tests were meant to be. And that is so that both our teachers as well as the school in general can get this feedback on how we're doing with teaching our curriculum, areas that we may need to grow in, areas that we excel in, and everything in between. It also gives our families a chance to take a look at how their students are doing on a nationally normed reference test. We do a different type of STAR, and that's called the STAR 360. And this is done, it is a computer-based test, and it's done in the fall, winter, and spring. And this test, it's not a high-stakes test like the STAR in the public schools, but rather a way for teachers to gauge growth throughout the year with their students. And so it's great because we can use it as a diagnostic tool to really target the different areas that certain students need either to be remediated in or areas where they're strong in and they need to be pushed in. So a little bit about standardized testing. As you can see on the next slide, I'm just going to go real quickly through the basics. We follow the TEKS in science. We've recently made a change for some of you who may have had older students go through our middle school. We used to have a different area of science in each grade level. We would have life science in the 7th grade. We had integrated physics and chemistry in the 8th grade. And then we had in 6th grade earth science. And so we have, again, aligned ourselves with the TEKS, as has the rest of the Archdiocese. And now we integrate science throughout the grade levels in 6th, 7th, and 8th. So they're getting a little bit of that circling back on that each year in science. Social studies, another change that we made to align ourselves even further with the TEKS. You see world cultures here in 6th grade. That is what we used to do. We are now doing modern geography in 6th grade. We continue to do Texas history in 7th grade. And in 8th grade, they get U.S. history. Okay? And you can see some of the resources that we use in theology. Mr. D, you've probably heard of him before, even if you don't go to Christ the Redeemer, is our theology teacher, and he does a wonderful job of integrating the faith into the daily lives of the students. So it's not just about learning about the Bible, it's about living the Bible. And he'll get a chance to speak to that shortly. When we talk about transitioning to middle school, it's a big jump, whether you're coming from a different school or even if you're currently here in our 5th grade. But there are increased expectations. There is increased independence. They're typically moving from class to class throughout this 8-period day. So there's a lot of organizational skills that they need to learn. And we will talk a little bit more about how we help them get there. We're not just, we understand that when they come to us, they're still elementary students, and they need help with a lot of executive functioning skills. And we've worked really hard as a middle school team over the course of the past 2 years to really try and work together as a team so that we're providing them with a similar way in each of their classes. So whether it's note-taking or how they're keeping their planners or where we're posting our tests, we try to keep that as streamlined as possible amongst the classes so that we can teach the kids a better way and to organize this more rigorous, independent expectations that we have of them. Obviously, they come to us as 5th graders and they leave us as well-prepared 8th graders who are ready to take on high school. It's amazing what a difference 3 years makes. I have my own son who is a 7th grader, and just to see a picture on my refrigerator physically of where he was literally about a year and a half ago, which was at my shoulders, and now he's about an inch taller than me. There's all sorts of changes going on. It takes a very, very special person to be a middle school teacher, and I commend all 4 of you up here on the stage, as well as Coach Leach, who is out there as well, who works with our middle school in athletics and PE, and she'll be coming up and speaking with you shortly. But we do a lot of different things, preparing them with student planners, their online grade book. I mentioned a common testing calendar that we use. And all of this is accessible to the parents as well, or as under Crusader parents, because we want to team up with the families to support the kids, especially in their 6th grade year. We want to build independence, but at the same time, we understand that they need to be guided to become those independent learners. So another big piece at our school, and if you go here currently, you know we follow the Love and Logic philosophy, not only on discipline, but as a way for students to build self-discipline. And a way for them to become problem solvers. So a lot of times when students come to us with a problem, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to turn it back to them and try to get them thinking, what ideas do they have to solve a problem? Right? I can't think of a day that goes by that Mr. Courtney doesn't cause a dozen problems for himself. So I've become very good at problem solving. And this is what we want from our kids. We want our kids to experience struggle and to experience having to figure out how to solve not just a math problem, but problems that come up in the everyday as we grow and we become older and we become more social beings, we become more spiritual beings. You know, we are each and every day teaching our kids through inspired learning, but at the same time, we know that the world out there teaches a very different message. And so it is vitally important to us. It is at the core of what we do that we provide them with the ability to think, but not only think in terms of critical thinking, but think as spiritual young men and women who have a very clear guiding light. So I'm going to talk a little bit now about meeting the diverse learning needs of students, and we'll use English, language arts, and math as an example. And I'm going to go through these really briefly because we have the gurus up here in the front who will speak more to that. But different than some schools do is we use a workshop approach to both reading and writing. And what that means is that you're not going to see kids open up a big textbook and read an excerpt from a piece of literature. But instead, they're going to be reading high-interest novels, many of which are self-chosen. They're going to be learning certain content and skills and applying that to books they love. And it's a wonderful program. It's one that we know works because we know we have seen not only increases in our reading scores, but we have seen and heard from many parents how much their children love to read. And it gets back to what I said originally. There is no better indicator of success in school than someone who is an avid reader. And so we work very hard on that. Writing workshop, you can kind of see in the slide here the different pieces of writing that they do. And Ms. Voigt will get into more specifics on that. But we want to create writers. And they go through the writing process. And we go back and we work a lot on the traditional grammar, spelling, punctuation, all of those things that in a day and age where they have an entire different language through their phones, we still teach them that every sentence starts with a capital letter, every sentence ends with a period, and there's a bunch of stuff that Mrs. Voigt teaches them that I've long since forgotten that is vitally important. And so we focus heavily on writing, and we integrate that writing process throughout our classes. So that's not that they're just writing in their writing classes, but they're writing across curriculum. Moving on to math. This slide is a bit outdated. But what I will say is that what you can see is some of our supplemental math curriculum there. In the slides that Mrs. Labaugh will be showing, you can see some of the current resources that they use. But this would represent what a student in an advanced track would go through. So they would have general math, course 2, in 6th grade, they would go to pre-algebra in 7th, and they would do algebra 1 in 8th. Not all students are ready for that track. And we want to make sure we meet them where they're at, and we're providing them with the kind of instruction that they need. Because one thing we know about math is that if you don't have a strong base, if you don't have those building blocks, it can really hurt you moving forward. So we are very careful with our placements of our students, and we want to make sure that they're prepared for the right math class when they move on to high school. All right. Tony, would it be possible for us to talk athletics right now to get to that slide? Okay. We're going to answer some questions first, and while we're doing that, Coach Leach, if you want to come up over here to stage right, we'll be with you shortly.
Thank you, Mr. Courtney. We have some questions for our alumni, so if y'all want to pop on up. So to the alumni, a question we received is, how academically ready did you feel for high school upon leaving Christ the Redeemer?
I'll start off and then we'll go to you. I felt very, very academically ready. Going into high school, I knew it was going to be tougher because it's high school and it's more advanced than middle school, but CTR really gave me a good base and a good way that I knew how to learn and how to take notes and how to structure my learning so that I wouldn't fall behind when I got to high school. So once I did, it was a very smooth transition for me. So academically, I felt very, very prepared.
Kind of like what Tony said, I too was very academically prepared. I think all the skills that I learned here at CTR really helped me to focus more in high school, but I also have more of a motivation, and I feel really on top of my game right now, so I thank CTR for that. And just, kind of going to what Mr. Courtney said about the whole love and logic of solving my own problems. I've become a better advocate for myself, academically especially, and I think it's so great feeling so prepared. So yeah, I definitely felt prepared.
Thank you, Taylor and Tony. Mr. Courtney, I have a question for you. We had a question about ways that Christ the Redeemer could improve. Could you speak to a specific area that we have worked hard over the last few years to improve in terms of academics?
Well, I think one example would be, having on-level and advanced level mathematics as well as, and this is something that we were able to do last year and look forward to doing again next year. And that is making sure that we prepare our students and that they have a full period of English and that they also have a language arts class separately. And that way they're able to more heavily focus on the skills that are needed when they get into high school. So those things are vitally important. I think a third piece that I talked about is just preparing kids with the skills that they need. Executive functioning skills, that comes and goes in my mind all the time. Executive functioning skills we focus a lot on. We're really trying to create kids who aren't just rote memorizers, that they know how to learn, they think critically, and they're able to problem solve. So there are those things. Our athletic program you'll hear about is growing. It's taken a little pit stop this year, unfortunately, due to COVID. But, and I think we have a lot of potential, and that potential comes from numbers. The more classes that we can have, sections of classes. For instance, last year we had 5 sections in our middle school, so we were able to do more things with that. This year we have 4 sections of middle school, so we weren't able to departmentalize English language arts as much. That's not to say that we're not meeting the TEKS, but we're able to go above and beyond and provide even more for our students when we have larger middle school. So that's why we're really hoping and praying that we're able to continue with 2 6th grade classes for next year, that we're able to have 2 6th grade classes next year, 2 7th grade classes, and 2 8th grade classes. That would be a dream to us, and then it would allow us to be able to better offer more choice for kids. And I think that, being honest, we want to grow in that area in terms of more electives for students. And that just comes with numbers and personnel. So hope that answers the question.
Thank you, Mr. Courtney. I think we are good with questions for now.
Wow, that wasn't too many questions. You people out there, you got to come up with more questions. All right, I'm going to bring Coach Leach up here, and she's going to talk a bit about athletics here at Christ the Redeemer.
Hello, everyone. It is really wonderful to be here tonight with two of my former athletes sitting behind me. They were amazing for their participation and contribution to the growth of our athletic program in their day. So I'm very proud of them. So I'm going to go ahead and review just what our typical school year of athletics will look like. In a typical year, we start off early in July with preseason sport-specific camps. And those camps revolve around our fall sport offerings, which is cross-country running. This is my cross-country team t-shirt that I have on right now. And then we have a boys team and a girls team for running. We have a co-ed soccer program that runs in the fall, and we have girls volleyball that runs in the fall. With a robust middle school, we can run a large cross-country team, 2 co-ed soccer teams, a varsity and a JV, and 3 volleyball teams, a C team for development, which can include 5th and 6th graders, a JV team, 6 and 7, and a varsity team, 7 and 8, depending on ability and skill level. And that's how that we round out the fall with volleyball. Pretty much finishes the fall for us, and we move into our winter sports. And our winter offering is basketball. It is all gym all the time in the winter. We have planned for 3 girls basketball teams and 3 boys basketball teams. Winter sports run November through January. So winter sports, it seems like a long season because of the many scheduled holidays and breaks that we have to accommodate Thanksgiving and Christmas. When we come back from the Christmas break, we run right into track and field. So we start a large girls and boys team track and field. That's typically one of our biggest sport offerings for the school year. And that spring sports run from February to just about the end of April. The other sport that we offer, this will be our second year to offer it, is a golf team. So 6th, 7th, and 8th graders are allowed to participate in a golf season. And it's been a great experience. They get to go to an actual golf course, nearby golf course, and we have a golf pro that instructs those athletes. And those are the sport offerings that we have at Christ the Redeemer, and we're really excited about the upcoming season and the upcoming school year. So go Crusaders.
Thank you so much, Coach Leach. You know, Coach Leach is our athletic director. She's our PE instructor. She lines the fields with white chalk. I've seen her have her own husband and children out here setting up nets. And I don't think I've ever gone into a PE class where I haven't seen our kids just totally engaged. And we can't, talk about educating our children without talking about the importance of physical activity and what it means to us here at school. And we have one of, I'm going to say, the best PE/athletic director in the city. So thank you, Coach Leach, again, for all you do. Speaking of Steps for Students, we've come up with a wonderful way to run Steps for Students, even though it can't happen downtown like it usually does. That's one of the Archdiocese's largest fundraisers and one of our largest fundraisers as well. But the students will be, during their PE time, competing in Steps for Students. So we're excited about that coming up soon. All right, so this is the point in the show where you get to hear from the teachers. And I am just going to turn it over to them, and it looks like our math guru, Miss Amy Labaugh, is going to start. So, without any further ado, Mrs. Labaugh.
Hello. All right, so this year, you heard Mr. Courtney mention earlier that I've made some changes and additions to our curriculum. The textbooks that you may be familiar with if you had older students, we still have them, and I use them if we need some extra practice or repetition. But I have found what I think are some really good materials that are more rigorous, and they're very well organized. They help make sure that I am hitting all of the TEKS, the standards for the state of Texas, in a very systematic way. And because they are prepared in a way that allows me to give the kids guided notes, I feel like I'm saving time on the note-taking part. In years past, I would be, regurgitating things from the book and say, write this, write this. Now most of that is written for them. We fill in a few crucial points, and then I have more time to work examples with them or release them and let them try it with each other. And we change it up, depending on the day and the topic and how they're doing with it. So you should have seen, well, older kids, if you have any currently, you see they have packets for every unit. And so next year, your 6th graders will have that. They're numbered, so each lesson will have those notes and a corresponding homework. And at the end of every unit, we have the review guide. In between there, depending on the need I see for their understanding, we have other activities that I can, intersperse in what we're doing. And those vary. Some of them I haven't been able to do this year because of our distancing restrictions. But they have some really fun activities. Even today, for one of our notes, it was in the format of tic-tac-toe. So there were 9 problems, and I split the class into teams and X's and O's, and they went to the board. They picked which location they wanted to work a problem from, and they worked together, solved it. If they got it right, they got to place their X or their O. And they were really engaged in it, excited about it, and working problems and strategizing about which location to pick next. So it was pretty fun. Going more into the homework, it is normally for independent practice, and I emphasize that to the kids because a lot of them get stressed and like, oh, is this going to be a grade? And I'm like, it's going to be a grade for completion and effort. But this is your practice after what may be the first time you've ever seen a topic. So I really try to emphasize with them that they need to communicate with me and try to build that trust and you just believe that I'm not going to leave them hanging. If you let me know you're struggling, we're going to back up and work on it. And I think on the slide you'll see my little acronym there, PPM. I guess I was feeling kind of corny that day. I don't know. That's really just fancy words for their homework grid. I give the students a card stock each 9 weeks, and the day after homework is due, I walk around the room and I just put a stamp if they did it. And if they don't, I put a little X, and it's a visual to help them to remember, oh, I need to do that. And we have a 2-day late policy. So I don't know, I feel like it made a difference last year when I tried it. So they can kind of track where they are, and each day, since they're opening it for me to come stamp, they can be reminded, oh, I need to do that. So I'm hoping that's something helpful for their executive functioning skills. Some supplemental things, we do IXL. I know the students cringe a lot of times at the sound of it. So I try to use it strategically and for things that really just need repetition. If I see someone struggling with a skill that they should already have, here's a good IXL to practice that. Or a few days before the test, parents may reach out and say, is there anything else they can practice? So I can scan through and send them. And I find that if you take some of the pressure off of having to reach a certain percentage and just using it for the practice and reading through the examples when you miss it, I think it maybe alleviates some of that anxiety, I hope. I haven't used Khan Academy too much this year, but it is a really good resource that we can lean on. And Math Antics does have some really good videos that can just change things up a little bit. The guy is really funny, and they get a kick out of them. As they grow and progress, I'll use some other digital technology. Since we do not require graphing calculators, for instance, in 8th grade or Algebra 1, there's a wonderful online version called Desmos. If you've never heard of it, you should look into it. It does graphing calculator things, and it has activities that teachers around the country, around the world have put together, and even the creators at Desmos put together. And the kids, it's like an interactive activity that they can go through, and it has them explain, you know, all their reasonings for why they put an answer. It just steps them through different processes. In 7th grade, one that I'm using right now is called GeoGebra, and I like what I'm seeing for some of the surface area that we're working on. It gives them the 3D solids, and for instance, a cylinder, it can unwrap a 3D cylinder so that they can see what shapes it turns into and what they're calculating. So just to give them those extra visual supports. We do continue with simple solutions, and I feel like I see a difference. My 6th graders this year, I didn't teach 6th grade last year. They've done it before, and I feel like they are familiar with it, and they're comfortable with it. They do pretty well on the quizzes. Last year when I jumped into 7th and 8th grade and they had not had it before, I felt like there was a little more of a learning curve, but I do feel like some of the younger ones who've been exposed have made some really good improvements. So on the next slide, I talked about simple solutions. This year I started off kind of slow with them. We just started working on the lessons and didn't introduce the quizzes until 2nd quarter. Some of the things I focus on are how to study for math. I cannot tell you how many times I hear kids say, oh, I didn't study, I don't know how to study. Well, so we talk about it in class a lot, so I try to make a point to model my thinking when I'm going through, and luckily I need to do that anyway, so they hear me reasoning out what I'm doing every day. So I do tell them that it's really just about practice. There are some things that you'll have to memorize, but really it's just go look at your options, all your old problems, rework them, or I can give you some fresh ones if you don't like old problems. We do talk about scratch work versus process work because I do give partial credit. So if they can show me some understanding in what they do, I can see, it helps me know how to better teach them, first of all. If they didn't get it, I can go back and reteach. And then it helps them have, you know, feel like they got some kind of credit for knowing what they do know. The curriculum, the materials that I bought for this year are very word problem heavy. They're just everywhere you turn. It's got the decimals, the fractions in it. You can't escape it. So you can't go around them. You've got to do them. So I feel like I have high hopes for this, that they'll really make some growth in those areas. And I think that's really about all that I need to say.
Well, thank you.
We have a question from a parent, Ms.
Can I
Law.
interrupt the producer
Yes.
for just a quick second?
Absolutely.
I wanted to ask if anyone had any other questions for our alumni, because I know they have studies to do and all sorts of things, so we were going to go ahead and release them. Are there any other questions that are coming up for them? Okay.
Okay, so I'm going to go off of some of the questions they submitted when they signed up. So if y'all want to come on up, I'll ask you a couple. Why did you choose CTR?
Do you want to start with this one?
Well, to be completely honest, it wasn't my choice. I came into CTR. When I was in the 4th grade. And at first, I had transferred from a public school, and I was in the 3rd grade at the time, and I was kind of moody. I was like, why do I have to go? All my friends are here. And I think over time at CTR, I'd realized how important it was to my parents to not only get a higher education, it was really valuable to them, but to integrate my faith and my religion into what I was studying and to my everyday life and the atmosphere around me. It was just so important to them, and they just saw like a little spark here, and I think I slowly started to see that spark in my years here, and graduating and going into high school. I look back on it, and I was just so grateful to be here. And, you know, as the broody fourth grader I was coming into this school, I was really happy that they put me in here. So.
For me, I came in my sixth grade year. I had been in a Christian school from kindergarten to fifth grade, and so it was my first really experience into the Catholic learning environment, which I've learned so much from, and it really was very influential to me. But I really enjoyed my sixth grade year, but my brother was homeschooled, so I decided to leave my seventh grade year and try homeschool. But I missed CTR so much that I came back my eighth grade year and had to finish out my middle school career here, because of all the wonderful memories that I had made in sixth grade, and I made so many more in eighth grade with all of my good friends.
Thank you. Okay, another one. What were your favorite classes at CTR in middle school?
Not to put anybody aside, but my favorite class had to be theology, because it was something that I had never learned before in any of my other school, and it wasn't anything I learned the Catholic faith, and I was very interested every day. I learned something new from Mr. Dolce. He always taught us, and he always taught how it applied to our lives and how we could use it in our everyday life. So that had to be my favorite class.
Honestly, and not because all my teachers are here, but I honestly don't know if I could choose one specific one, because I think all of them had just put in a good 2 cents, if not a million times more, into my high school career. And it was just so nice to be able to walk into high school and sit through my classes and kind of look at the board and say, hey, I know that. Like, I was taught that a super long time ago, and I can apply this now, and, you know, through math and science and English, and I've become a better writer. I'm faster at solving problems. There's more of a motivation to everything I do. Subjects that I once had a disliking for, I'm like a whiz at now. So honestly, if I had to choose, it probably would be theology, just because I'm super interested in that kind of stuff. But I think just all of my classes have been super fantastic and definitely applied greatly to my high school career.
Awesome. So there's a lot of bonuses to being at a smaller school like Christ the Redeemer. And so one of the questions is, being at a smaller school, did you feel socially ready to go to the bigger high schools?
So for me, I'm actually at a small high school too. We have about 500 students attending. So kind of going from small school to slightly bigger but still small school. Socially, I felt like I was there. I think there was more upperclassmen, and when I was in 8th grade, I was the upperclassman, so it was kind of the tables had turned a bit. But it was nice, you know. I felt comfortable in the atmosphere I was in. I think going into a Catholic school, you know, it was kind of the same values applied, which made me feel comfortable, but yet I was prepared. So.
I felt very socially ready, because at my time at CTR, I had met so many different people, because it's very diverse, and we know I experienced a lot of different people, and I even transitioned into high school with some of those people, and I had that relationship from before, and we were kind of in it together going into high school. So socially, I felt very, very prepared.
Thank you very much. I think you answered most of their questions.
Of course. And one of the things these two kiddos are forgetting to mention is that they probably enjoyed their experiences in the fine arts and the performing arts, because they were both outstanding in those regards as well. Tony once graced the stage and wowed the socks off of everyone. Taylor is one of the finest visual artists that I know of from a young lady, so they also got to experience that aspect here at Christ the Redeemer as well. And so I know those were probably some of your favorite classes too. So I wanted to give a shout out to that as well. But thank you both so much for being here. Now get home and get studying, all right? The proof is in the pudding, and it is such a great honor for us to see our kids succeed, to hear from them, to see them in their parents' car during car line and get to check in on them, and hopefully next year have them come back and have lunch with us like they have done in the past. So thank you again. to Taylor and Tony. Are we going on to ELA or science?
Oh, we had
All
a
right.
math question. And I think you touched on this a little bit, Ms. LeBeau, but the question is, does the math curriculum integrate computer skills or coding in any way?
We do not integrate that as of right now. I would, I don't know if we talked about maybe adding that as an elective in the future, but no, not yet.
And we do have extracurricular options as well that aren't included on the slide, but there are different STEM opportunities for kids. They can, music, both vocal, choir, as well as instrumental music, art, different options for after school or before school extracurriculars.
I think it's me now. Science. I'm Mrs. Clancy, and I teach 6th, 7th, and 8th grade science. In 6th grade, this is our second year to completely align with the TEKS in 6th and 7th grade. And in 6th grade, it's more of a general science, more of an integrated, it kind of dabbles in each of the different disciplines. So it used to be earth science, which was fun, but it's way more fun to do a little bit of everything. It gives us more opportunities to do hands-on investigations. We're doing way more lab work than we, got to in earth science. I mean, it's just not as lab-friendly necessarily. So it does incorporate earth science. It actually incorporates earth science in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. 7th grade focuses more on life science. So just like it was before, but now we have a little bit of earth science mixed in there. And then 8th grade is also more physical science, like it was before, but also a little bit of earth science in there also. So the kids really enjoy it. We've gotten through like forces and matter and a little bit of chemistry. And so right now we are starting a new unit in energy. And so it's a lot of fun. We do projects because I don't really believe that they should be just doing tests, and that's boring all the time. So we do a little bit of both. We do, some major labs, which could take us a whole, week almost to get through the whole process of coming up with our procedure and writing a lab report, going through all the steps. Or we do projects where we built a catapult for the last unit, and they launched marshmallows in a competition. So that was a lot of fun for our Simple Machines unit. We do use supplemental science curriculum like Discovery Education, a little bit of IXL, like Ms. LeBeau said. We don't drill them with IXLs. We do it sparingly, when it's necessary or when it's helpful for them, just as extra practice. In science, I don't give a whole lot of homework because I know homework's really heavy in math, and it's, in reading, they're going to have a lot more homework. And so science, we use it as necessary, but it's not something they need to do daily like math. It's really important in math that they, go home and practice what they just learned. But we do focus more in science on study skills and coming up with different ways for different learners to use their study skills. There's a lot of vocabulary in science that they have to be able to apply. It's not just rote memorization. And that seems to be a big struggle, I guess, from 5th to 6th grade is what I've noticed, is that application process. And so taking them through that has been one of our goals. And that's pretty much it.
Okay. Hi, my name is Missy Voigt. I actually teach 2 subjects to the 6th graders. I teach 6th grade social studies, and I am the 6th grade ELA/R and literature teacher as well, or ELA and literature teacher. I have to tell you, first of all, that I love teaching middle school. I always think, like Mr. Courtney said, it takes, you have to have a calling to teach this grade level, but I love it. What I love about the middle school kiddo is that 1 minute they love you and they send you little notes and put stickers on things for you, and back in pre-COVID days, hug you. But then the next minute they give you the head nod and say sup. So I love that they are just grown-ups one day and little kids the next, and I love being a part of that transition with them. I remember middle school just being a stinky time, and I just want to be that smile in the middle of their day. So I love that, and I think our whole team loves this age. And that's one of the things I love about our team is we like each other, and we like teaching our kids, and we love this age level. And I think that that's just a blessing. I've taught at different schools, and to find a team that all likes being together and really enjoys what they do is just such a gift. And we work well together to make sure that we can do cross-curricular things, and nobody is holding on to their space or something like that. So I really enjoy that. As the social studies teacher, one of the things that Mr. Courtney mentioned is that we transitioned year before last to doing modern geography. When I started at CTR, we did ancient world cultures, which was super interesting. But I really love that we teach modern geography because we are global citizens. We live in a very big world, but it's also a very small world. And especially now with technology, something that happens on the other side of the world obviously affects all of us. And so what's lovely about teaching modern geography is our kids really learn about all the other places that are going to influence them throughout the rest of their lives. It's also nice because they're going to see this again when they get into 9th grade. So it's really good that this topic is not so far distant for them. And we do the program that we use is not, hardcore memorization of where Uzbekistan is. It's really about learning about that area and experiencing that and trying to really delve into it. And we try to make it really fun for them as well. So, like we're starting Africa in February, and we do an African art gallery where they explore different types of African art. We just finished our study in Europe, and so we did Christmas around the world, and we studied Christmas, and because I'm the language arts teacher, I know how to work with her, and so we did a research project where we compared and contrasted Christmas in the US and Christmas in another country of their choice, and then they did kind of a fun project with that. So I try to make it that it's something not just about rote memorization, but so that they actually get to take it to another level and experience it. So that's one of the things that I enjoy about teaching social studies with the kiddos in 6th grade. I make sure that, like Mr. Courtney talked about, that we're transitioning them from elementary to middle school. A lot of you know that I have a 5th grader right now, so she's going to be on this journey with me next year. But what's really important to watch them is that we don't just throw them to the wolves. We really try to gently lead them into this process of becoming independent people like Tony, and Taylor are in their high school studies. So they learn to take responsibility for themselves. So we share like a daily welcome slide with them. We teach them the skills to make sure that they can use their student planner and all of those things that are going to be those tools that are going to help them make that great transition to high school. And it starts in each one of our classes. I do guided notes with them so that they learn how to do that, and we do like scavenger hunts in our textbook and things like that. So it's a way to take their learning and guide them through the process without it making it a chore. So that's a little bit about social studies, and I'll be back to talk to you in a few minutes about ELAR, but I'm going to let Mr. D, everybody's favorite teacher, talk about theology with you.
No pressure, huh?
No pressure.
I'm Mr. Mark Dolce. I teach the theology here at 6th, 7th, and 8th grade here at Christ Redeemer. The big thing is, like Tony said, it was really nice to hear him say that, because it's to teach them to apply their faith to their everyday life. And so everything that I do is about, okay, this is what the gospel reading says. This is what our faith teaches. Okay, now how do we apply that today where we are? And that's applicable for 6th graders all the way up to adults. And so how do we connect that to our life? And so I spend a lot of time, we go through the Bible, we open up the scripture. Once a week we do a Bible study where I break open the scripture and help the kids be able to read and then understand and open it up and okay, that means this means this. Okay, now what part of that, how do we live our life? After we read that reading, how does it change what we do, and what we do with each other in the hall, what we do with our families, and so forth. So my slide says the primary focus of CTR Middle School is to help guide the students to have an encounter with Jesus, to continue to cultivate a lifelong loving relationship with our Savior. And so it's all about our relationship with Jesus. It's all about what can we do after we read the Scripture, after we go to Mass, and to put our faith in action. So we talk about service, we talk about prayer, we talk about spirituality. How can we be the hands and feet of Christ to each other and into the world, to our small community of school, our larger community of our parish, and of course the world. And so part of all of the classes, we do a Bible study, we learn about the liturgical seasons. I'm also help the kids if they want to be an altar server at Mass, at the weekly school Mass. If they want to be a student lector, I help train them for that. And then once the COVID ends up again, we'll be student greeters, has people come in like ushers just again, all of these things that they would do as adult servers. And then also in terms of the curriculum, I use the Benzinger, My Disciples, and then it's a review. Mostly it's an overall review of 1 through 5, and then this transitions into the 6th or the 7th and 8th grade. So it's a review of the Old Testament, God, Genesis, all the way to the Trinity, and then we move into the New Testament in an in-depth look at Jesus and the sacraments and the commandments. And then again, how do we live our life? How do we apply that information that we just got to our everyday life? That's it for me.
Okay, I'm back. My other role is to teach English, language arts, and literature, and that's my original teaching field. That's what my original job was, but I love that I get to translate that to social studies because it's just such a reading-heavy content area, so they really flow nicely together. And one of the things Mr. D mentioned that I love is that I feel like as an English teacher teaching in a Catholic school, I've taught in public and private school, and as an English teacher in the Catholic school, it's so nice that the air that we breathe here is imbued with just the essence of the Holy Spirit in everything that we do. And then I can really talk about that with our kids. You know, when we read a story like Where the Red Fern Grows, we can talk about why we pray. And, you know, when you talk about like answered prayers, that's a lesson I taught when I taught in public school, and we couldn't do that. So I just love that as a Catholic that I can let my faith be a part of my teaching as well. And that's just such a gift. We have two different, next year we'll have a literature and an ELA class, and the ELA class is more what you think of as traditional writing, grammar focused, and our literature class is more reading, vocabulary focused. But of course you can't really teach those two in isolation, you know, they bleed into each other, and that's normal. Like Mr. Courtney mentioned, we're very big on making sure that we have choice for the students in their reading. We still cover classics, and I make sure to give them a good exposure to that, but I also want to make sure that they have choice. So like when we do a characterization study, they might work in a book club and they pick between like, I don't know, 20 or 30 books, and they'll work on that. Or when we do a historical fiction study, I'll have a bunch of different reading groups working at the same time. So kids can read at their level, but we can all be talking about historical fiction at the same time. We do a lot of writing. We do narrative writing, persuasive writing. They just did that compare contrast that I mentioned to you. Poor Mr. Courtney gets an earful from some of our kids when they do persuasive writing about things we need to change at the school. And we do some letter writing about that. We do read as a class, one novel together, but I also like to give them some opportunities to read independently on that. And let's see, what else did I wanted to mention to you about that? Oh, we do poetry, and we have a vocabulary workshop that they started in, a lot of them are very familiar with that. We keep that, the rigor in that is very intense, and so we keep that up, but we do break it up so it's not overwhelming to them. We have a grammar book, but we use it as like a supplemental resource here that we pull in when they have grammar skills that I'm working on with them. And like I said, we do a lot of reading. One of my goals as their reading and writing teacher is to increase their reading stamina and their writing stamina, and to really make them just enjoy reading. It was such a really neat feeling recently. One of my students who's kind of a reluctant reader, we had been reading a book that comes in a series, And he came in the day he finished it, and he said, Mrs. Voigt, do you have that other one? And I said, I do. And I have the one after that, too. So it's just so fun to see them when they get hooked on something and get excited about it, and you find that little spark. And that's what I love as their reading and writing teacher. So that's a little bit about the ELA program at CTR. Then, I don't know, are you going to show that next slide about reading? I just had to throw that one in. Just how important it is just to make sure that, just my little plug for you, just because your kids are getting older, don't stop reading with them. You know, grab Chronicles of Narnia. That's a great book to read with this older group of kids, or Harry Potter or something, and read it together each night. But, you know, I have to throw in the plug there about that. So that's a little bit about the ELA program here at CTR in middle school. Is that good, Mr. Courtney? You good?
You got an A+.
Okay, good.
A+. Thank you. So I'm going to kind of open this up for all of us to speak to, and we've talked a lot about it already, but just the importance of we're in this together. And we are a smaller school, and with that does come a lot of advantages. And I think that we are, as both an administrative team and a teaching staff, approachable, available, and we want to be there to help support you, support your children, but to do it in the right ways. And I think that through the partnership that we have with our families, we're able to do that. We've all heard the old adage, it takes a village, and we believe that truly. And that's from everything from the values that we teach to getting some extra help for your young learner in pre-algebra class. But we truly believe we're in this together. One of the things behind the scenes kinds of things that goes on that, you know, many people don't know that goes on is that every week we get together. I myself, as kind of the middle school, Miss Siri has all sorts of things on her plate, so she looks after all of the kids through 5th grade, and I kind of focus more of my class time in the middle school. In terms of supporting those teachers. So while Miss Siri is meeting with each of her grade levels, I have a chance to meet once a week with the middle school team. And these are opportunities for us to get together and work together. We had talked about the fact that we all really like each other, so we kind of look forward to those meetings. It gives us a chance to pull our hair out sometimes about kids not keeping their masks all the way up on their face and other little things that, you know, can drive a teacher crazy when you're teaching a middle school kid. Like Mrs. Voigt said, there's a Jekyll and Hyde thing going on there sometimes, but that's why we love it, because we understand it and we know that that's the way they're supposed to be. But we get a chance to talk about students, to get together and say, okay, I'm concerned about this student. What do you see with this student? Well, we really should reach out to this family. And we offer that same thing to you folks, to reach out to us when you are feeling that there's something going on. We don't want families to wait until the end of the quarter, the semester, or God forbid, the end of the year to say there's a problem going on. We want to try to nip those things in the bud. We want to know whether that's an issue socially, academically, or anything in between. So we are a team here at Christ the Redeemer, and we are accessible. How can parents help? Arrive to school on time. We're big on arriving to school on time. And you know what? We do a really good job at this school. If you're not part of this school yet, and you will be, we recently got a compliment that our car line is the equivalent to the Chick-fil-A drive-thru. So we figured that was one of the highest compliments in terms of how we organize getting kids here and back to you at the end of the day. So, you know, keep up on your child's grades, their planners, check our middle school testing calendar, and, you know, have printing capabilities at home. So that's kind of getting into the weeds on some of the stuff that we talk to our teachers or our parents about when we have parent night at the beginning of the year. But some of the different things you can see in that next slide in terms of student responsibility is these are the exact kinds of things that we're working with them. Proverbially holding their hands, especially in 6th grade, as they begin to become more organized, more attentive and on task, understand that being in class is an active thing, not a passive thing. How to take those notes, how to advocate for yourself. That's a real tough skill, and it's huge when it comes to executive functioning, is advocating for yourself and asking for need it and knowing where to go. Especially in this day and age where it used to be a lot simpler. Kid would bring home their backpack full of books and you'd say, well, go into the chapter and look. And now if you're like I am, especially during these pandemic days of distance learning and all of the different kinds of things that we've had to go through, as technology can be overwhelming. And where do you go, or where does a child go for things? And so we really work on streamlining that so that our students know and that our parents know where to go to get answers when they're looking for them. And speaking of technology, and granted things are a little bit different now that we are in some ways forced to use technology in certain ways, that we're a one-to-one school. We have all sorts of technological resources, but I've said this in the past. It might sound like a broken record to some of you who know me and who have been here for a while. Technology does not replace these teachers. It is one more tool in their toolbox. And we have to remember that, and we adhere to that. Good old paper and pencil, opening up a good old-fashioned book. There's nothing that beats that. So we use technology in targeted ways, and we don't use technology for the sake of using technology. That comes to the end of our prepared remarks. We wanted to know if you all have any other questions, because we may have the answers.
We do. We have a great question right now. One question is, if you could please give us an idea of what a day in the life of school or of a middle schooler looks like.
Well, I'm going to preface this by saying what a typical pre- and post-COVID day looks like. And I'll turn it over to any of you to speak to that.
Okay, so the kiddos come into school and they go to their homeroom class. We have lockers. They love that in middle school. It's like the big crowning glory when you get into our junior high wing. If you haven't been to our building, it's beautiful. And we have a gorgeous middle school area. It's like a nice little U shape. And we kind of have our own little spot. And I love that too, especially as a parent that has a kiddo that's going to be moving from 5th grade to 6th grade. I love that it's different. It's not the rest of the school. We have our own space, and I like that about it because it does make them feel like it's, they're in a new place. It's something different here. The lockers, of course, the highlight. So they go to their locker first. They get all their things, once again, pre-COVID, get all their things. They go to their homeroom class. They have a little bit of time, that first little bit of class. We always have some type of warm-up activity to get them started. And then they would be with us for about 45 minutes. The bell rings, and they move to the next class. If their class is over here, like in the rack or something like that, then we assist them with transitioning over to that area. But if it's just in the middle school wing, or to the Spanish area, which is the Spanish classroom, which is just right outside the wing, they are able to move from on their own to that class. So they move to their next class, same kind of thing, warm up, great teaching, and then move to the next class. We do have recess every day, and we usually try to tie it in if the scheduler does a good job, where recess and lunch go together, so that we have usually recess first and then lunch. sometimes lunch last year, and then recess. So usually right around each other, which is a nice break for everybody. And the kiddos love playing out in the Gaga Ball pit and hanging outside. And I think it's so important for middle schoolers to still get that time out. That's something I never have understood, why schools get rid of recess for middle schoolers, because I think they need it sometimes more than elementary school does. And then they do have 2 enrichment periods a day that they go into, and that alternates throughout the week. So they might be in PE at their first enrichment in the morning, and then in their afternoon enrichment, they might be in art. And then another day, they might be in library in the morning, and then they might have PE in the afternoon, just because we like to keep poor Coach Leach not knowing what's going on. But anyway, it does vary. It follows a consistent schedule from week to week, and the kids totally figure it out the first day. And we have to look at our schedules for about 2 weeks. But anyway, they get it all figured out. At the end of the day, they participate in carpool just like the regular everybody else in the building. And then they do have some extracurricular activities that they can participate in after school. And if they're in sports, then they stay after school and do that with Coach Leach. So that's kind of it. Did I do a good job with that? Anything I missed? Okay. Else is they also have an opportunity in middle school to participate in student council, which is something unique to middle school, and it's a great experience for them. They run for different offices. I'm so proud of them when they get up and do their little speeches, and they vote on those offices, and Mr. D runs our student council program, and those kids run all different kinds of events, all the dances, all the service things to the school. It's a really wonderful outreach for them, and it's lovely to see so many of the kids participating in that.
Well, thank you very much. There are a couple last thoughts that I wanted to touch on, a couple of things that aren't in the slides, but we are currently in the process of becoming a STEM certified school. And for those of you who know, we consider ourselves a STREAM school, which is basically STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math, with religion and art mixed into that. So we are currently in the process of becoming one of the very few Catholic grade schools within the nation to be certified through the National Institute of STEM Education. And that's actually a program from right here at Rice University that was developed at Rice University. And one of the things that differentiates this certification from other STEM certifications that you may see in schools is that a lot of them are just simple rubber stamps. Check off the box that you do this, and this, and we'll say you're a STEM school. Whereas the National Institute of STEM Education through Rice University is actually an ongoing, lengthy, and very in-depth professional development opportunity for both teachers and then on a grander scale for our school in general. So if you get a chance, Google the National Institute of STEM Education, and you can learn more about what our teachers and our school is doing in terms of preparing our students, preparing ourselves to be better able to prepare our students for, we used to say the 21st century, but beyond. And so we're excited about that as well. And I'd like to finish with a short story about my own daughter that I think is important. I think that a lot of people who are here tonight may be on the fence. Hopefully a lot of you are just here because you're 100% in and will be here next year. But I want to speak to all of you, whether you're on the fence, whether you're all in. My daughter, Larissa, who went to Catholic school from the time she was 3 all the way to 8th grade, ended up going to public high school in Katy. And it got me to thinking about her journey and her journey through Catholic grade school, including middle school. And as I thought about it and looked at it after she had gone off to high school, I really kind of look at it in 2 phases. And she had such a wonderful elementary experience, pre-K, kindergarten, all the way through 5th grade. And I see it with our kids here at our school. We do such a wonderful job of planting those seeds to our young learners. And they, to watch these young kids, kneel at Mass and pray is kind of one of the most heartwarming things that you can possibly see. And they learn a lot about our faith. What I think a Catholic middle school education provides is something that is truly invaluable. And that's that opportunity for those seeds to take root and for those roots to take hold. And we see that because as these kids become social beings and they're more exposed to the world outside, we are here to help guide and support them, water those seeds, and watch them literally take root. I mean, proof was in, like I said, the pudding when you saw Taylor and Tony here earlier. So my daughter gets to high school, and meanwhile, the middle school years, she was more, which was the good one, Jekyll or Hyde? She was more the bad one. We just, wonderful. But, there were times where, you pull your hair out with any middle schooler. But she had that opportunity in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade for the teachings of elementary school to really take root. And I remember, I didn't necessarily remember coming to that conclusion, but it slapped me in the face when one day she came home from her freshman year at Katie Taylor, and she said, Dad, can you take me to the Christian bookstore? And I said, yeah, I can, absolutely. What do you need? And she said, I need a Bible. And I said, oh, that's fantastic. And we've always had a family Bible, and she had her school Bible. And I said, well, you have a Bible upstairs. What's this Bible for? And she had joined a group called Young Life, which is a national Christian organization that she got very involved with throughout her time in high school. And I know, and she had to get a Bible, she told me, because she needed a Bible that she could write in and take notes in. And that follows her throughout her high school career, where she spent a lot of her time, extracurricular time, in service to others. And whether that was in a Big Brother or a little Big Brother, Big Sister program, or working with students with special needs, we saw that the best investment her mom and I had ever made, the best return on investment we had ever made, was the Catholic education that she received from the time she was 3 years old to the time she was in 8th grade. And she continues to get involved in Christian-based, Catholic-based organizations via the screen up at the University of Arkansas. And I'm not saying this because I believe that that's the path that all kids are going to take, but I use it as an example to show how vitally important I think these formative years, when they're getting bombarded with the secular world, how important it is to allow these to take root, these principles that we have to take root. And that a lot of times, and I remember debating this time and time again with people, well, don't you feel like you're keeping your kid in a bubble? I said, yeah, I think about that sometimes, right? But, both Taylor and Tony, while they're at Catholic and Christian schools, we have plenty of students who go on to our public schools and who thrive in our public schools as well. And I think that, and we actually tried to get one to come tonight, but they were unavailable. But I just can't stress enough the importance of a middle school Catholic education. So please keep that in mind when making your decisions about your children's futures. Christ the Redeemer is a dynamic place. Christ the Redeemer is a young school, and it is a school that is going places and growing. So please come and be a part of that growth. If you have any other questions, feel free to email me, give us a call, and we'll be sure to answer them. We thank you. Hopefully you're all still with us for joining us tonight, and want to remind all of you parents who are part of the school, tomorrow is our first Learn from Home day, so the teachers will be at school working on curriculum and planning. So thank you and good night.